to proceed with our next witness, which will be, we will not speak at such length as we did with the previous witness, but this witness will come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and we'll resume. We are now waiting for Mr. Ronald DeWolf to come in. Thank you, Mr. DeWolf. We will attempt to make this as painless as possible for you, sir. I know that you were also a courageous individual to be here with us this afternoon, especially because of your background. I would like to ask you a few, before we do ask you questions, sir, I'd like to ask you if you would be sworn in by our clerk, please.
DeWolf, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. DeWolf, I'd like to ask you these same 5 standard questions that I'll be asking every witness that we will be listening to on both sides of the issue. Number 1, are you appearing here today and testifying under oath voluntarily?
Yes.
Number 2, have you been paid by anyone for your testimony other than expenses for coming to Clearwater?
No.
Number 3, do you have a lawsuit against the Church of Scientology?
No.
Does the Church of Scientology have a lawsuit against you?
No.
Has anyone suggested to you that you should state anything but the truth, or has anyone suggested to you that you change your testimony for any reason?
No.
Okay, sir. Your name is Robert DeWolf.
No, Ronald DeWolf.
Ronald DeWolf.
Ronald Edward DeWolf.
Are you the natural son of L. Ron Hubbard?
Yes, I am.
All right. So your surname that you were baptized with or born with was Ronald Hubbard.
That's correct.
And I see here that you were born in 1934 in California, and your mother was Margaret Louise Grubb.
Yes.
Etc. I don't think we have to go too much into that, but I read that the contributions to Scientology or processing of courses was written by Mr. DeWolf. Is that you, sir?
Yes, I didn't quite understand your statement, though.
Well, do you know anything about TRs and 8-C and miscellaneous Scientology processes?
Yes, because I helped create them.
All right, that's what I was really getting at. Do you want to tell us what TRs are and 8-C and when and why you did these things?
Well, the TR stands for training routine, which we used to call training drills. They were used in the beginning, or formulated in the beginning, in order to, as a method of, at that time, in communication and control of someone's body, because if you control someone's body, you control their mind. There were several of them. I don't happen to have a copy of them. It's been many years ago, but I could go over them point by point if you would like. If you would, in your own words, however you want to describe what you did or your job was within the organization. Oh, well, I was at various times director of training, director of processing, the executive secretary, which in those days would be the person responsible, for instance, here in the United States, for the entire United States. Okay. When did you leave the Church of Scientology? I left November 23rd, 1959 at 9 a.m. at Washington, D.C. 1959? Yes. When did you become involved with the Church of Scientology? In the very beginning in 1950. With the first book, Dianetics, Modern Science and Mental Health. I'm going down the outline here, and I see that Hubbard's primary means of income is writing, and he wrote such things as Arabian Night Adventures, Westerns, confessions of magazine articles, posing as a woman with problems, science fiction, and screenplays, up until
This is how your father originally gained his main source of income?
Yes, it was. There are, but the problem there is a lot of his writing. He didn't really write as many words as he said he did. Through the early 50s, he used to tell everybody that he had written 7 million words of fiction. But in fact, it probably never exceeded 1 million words, and that was during the 30s and 40s. And of course, during the 30s, that was mainly in the what was called pulp magazines, and he was paid like a penny a word, which doesn't amount to a great deal of money if you add it all up. But as far as his, one thing caught my eye in the outline on number 5. It said screenplays. I only know of one screenplay that he possibly was involved in, and I think it was a serial, one of those Saturday matinee serials that went on for 13 or 26 weeks or something. And it came, he either had a small part in writing it, or it came from a story of his. But there were many other screenwriters. By the time the play, the serial came out, there were several other screenwriters had rewritten it and had been added to the credits. So that's the only screenplay that I personally know of. And as far as his income is concerned, a great deal of his income came from my mother, who and my grandfather, his father, who supported him.
Then much of that has been written and said about your father is a figment of his imagination, would you?
That's quite correct, but particularly in these areas of G here, page 1, where Hubbard's primary means of income is writing. Yes, that was his income, but again, if you multiply 1 million words times a penny, you're only talking about, what, $10,000 or something?
1 million pennies, whatever that is.
And,
okay, yes, sir, go ahead.
No, but I remember some of his Arabian Night adventures because he had some of the original artwork paintings around, and he wrote westerns under Winchester, Remington, Colt, and also he wrote quite a number of confession magazine articles posing as a woman. That's quite correct. Posing as a woman with problems.
Is that like Advice to the Lovelorn, similar to the syndicated columns today?
Not really. It is. I think you can still see some of that type of literature today, where
True Confessions.
Like True Confessions or My True Story,
yes,
or
right,
things like that.
And of course, quite a bit of science fiction through the various magazines, particularly through Unknown Stories in 1940, 39 and 40. Which later became Astounding Science Fiction, and which later became Analog. So.
According to the outline, there's a lot of things here concerning your life, your early life, and your relationship with your mother and your father. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Sure.
But if you'd like to, I'd like to hear from it in your own words. We're looking at it. His marriage last, and Margaret, who bore one child, and et cetera, et cetera. I hesitate to ask you about M2, shall I read that?
Oh, certainly. Well, okay. My father's been married 3 times. I know in Scientology literature and what he tried to lead other people to believe in his writings of his biographies that he's only been married once, to Mary Sue Hubbard, but he's been married 3 times. His first marriage was to my mother, Margaret Louise Grubb. They were married April 13th, 1933 in Elkton, Maryland. By the way, my mother was born September 22nd, 1907 in Bealsville, Maryland. And then just to cover some of the vital statistics here, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. I want you to tell it in your own words because I don't know how much you want to say at this point.
Then my mother and father were divorced December 24th, 1947 in Port Orchard, Washington. And then my mother died November 17th, 1963, Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Then he married a Sarah Northrup, and let me get the exact date in here somewhere.
It says 1946, but that's before the divorce.
1946, Hubbard married Sarah Northrup.
That's correct. It was a bigamous marriage.
And that's what I understand. There is a year difference there that he must have been married to two people at the same time.
I wasn't listening.
And that lasted a few years, and he bore one child.
Correct.
Some of these other things are rather personal in nature, and you may want to talk about them, or you may want to talk about them.
No, I'm perfectly willing to talk about them because I believe that all of the facts, the true history of L. Ron Hubbard should come out and should be known by people. I'm talking about the documented facts and the actual occurrences of his lifetime, because he has built up over the years since 1950 a great mystique, a great amount of false and imaginary data. I could say flatly that 99% of what my father wrote about his own life and what he had done is false. And since it has always been a rather integral part of Scientology itself, that I think that people should know those facts.
All right, sir.
So any part of this, I would be very happy to go over. Or
do you have anything about an example about being false? I mean, was he really in the war and shot up and healed himself with his own mind? And
he was in the Navy during World War II, but he wasn't shot up.
Okay. What about his educational background?
Blinded. Excuse me, sir.
Sir, are you finished?
I said he was never wounded or blinded.
He has attributed to his great powers, and because he has had this fantastic educational background. Would you like to go into how far in college did he indeed go, and what degrees has he had?
He spent a few months, as far as college is concerned, at George Washington University. And one of the major points that he has said that he has a degree in engineering. At one point, there was a degree in nuclear engineering. Now, of course, that changed. As far as any nuclear engineering is concerned, he only took one semester, and he received an F, as in failure, for the one semester.
I think that's pertinent because Mr. Walters spoke earlier in the day about one of the reasons why he believed in all these principles and successes is because of your father's background, and that was so significant. But apparently that is not true. Can you tell me something about Dianetics? Apparently Hubbard, I told DeWolf in 1947 he was thinking about writing a book called Dianetics.
That's correct. I was living in Bremerton, Washington at the time, and he had some of these, as I try to explain them, it's sometimes difficult to explain simply, in easily straightforward terms, because sometimes these incidents are kind of highly complex and they lead from one thing to another. My father at the time had Sarah Northrup with him in a trailer over in Port Orchard, Washington, which is 6 miles away from Bremerton, Washington. And that's where he had told me that he was thinking about writing a book about the mind, and in subsequent phone calls and contacts, he mentioned calling it Dianetics. That was in 1947 and then through 48. I can go through it sort of chronologically if you like.
All right, sir. Dianetics, then, the modern science of mental health, deals greatly with husbands beating their pregnant wives. Is there anything?
That's correct. There's, I believe...
You may have a book about husbands beating pregnant wives. That's part of the book?
Well, I believe altogether there's something around 270, I believe, various incidents in it which have to do with a great deal of prenatal experiences, husbands beating wives, and of attempted abortions by husbands and on wives, and then attempted abortions by women on themselves. And the general focus of the book is, I would say, to put it in one word, sex.
All this unusual ways of abortion is under the title of a book called The Modern Science of Mental Health.
Mm-hmm. Correct. But one of the things about the Dianetics Modern Science of Mental Health, I know I'm offshooting in various directions here, but Dianetics Modern Science of Mental Health was at various times written, he said, in 3 months, and also he has said it was written in 6 weeks. What he has told me, we visited Bayhead, New Jersey, where he wrote the book with Sarah there. And when we were touring the very small cottage on the beach, it was empty at that time, but the door was open. We walked around inside. He said that he had written it in less than a month. And but the incidents in Dianetics Modern Science of Mental Health came from generally from his imagination, and also the at least 2 attempted abortions on my mother. One I observed when I was around 6 or 7, and his other activities with other women. But as far as any research is concerned, he has said at various times that he had spent 30-some years researching it, but he didn't. It stems from there were, I think, a 2 or a 3-part article in Astounding Science Fiction, which is now called Analog Magazine, but at that time it was Astounding Science Fiction. Came out about 1948 or 49, and the response to it was so overwhelming that John W. Campbell, the editor of the magazine, and other people insisted that Dad make a complete book out of it. So he had to hurry up and write it fairly quickly. Then the book came out in May 9th, 1950. So there was the original magazine article, which I notice in recent and even earlier Scientology literature that they never mention the magazine article, which was the original.
Well, since your father used the principles in the book, The Modern Science of Mental Health, in performing an abortion on your mother, how did all this relate or lead to Scientology?
Oh, wow, you got about 3 weeks. No, anyway, so...
Well, it doesn't... it's hard for me to follow, you know...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, sir.
How
I find it somewhat easier to do this in chronological.
Yes, sir. All right. I'm trying to lead you through it, and if I...
Well, it says that the book preys on mentally impaired or ill people, and Dianetics' book represents its methodology will cure more than 70% of all man's ills, and he's claimed it cured cancer, tuberculosis, arthritis, heart disease, retardation, and you can increase your IQ and etc. Do you think that he has
No,
It's successful in any of these things?
He claimed it cured anything and everything.
Then the list could be larger, etc.
No, you see, Dianetics and Scientology, I can back up on this later a little bit, but Dianetics and Scientology is, according to Dad, the one and only true path to freedom, the one and only true alleviation of any aberration or human problem. It is the solution to anything that a human being may want to do, or he may have any sickness and illness. I know that over the years, I can remember in the 50s where we were putting across it would cure anything, including falling hair and dandruff, and but the lawyers and attorneys and the government were getting very uptight and very upset about us using the word cure, because the very first Dianetic Research Foundation in Elizabeth, New Jersey in 1950, that's one of the reasons it got closed up, and while Dad had to move on to Wichita, Kansas. But the main idea here was that we had to alter what we were selling out.
Was it the local AMA that decided your father's book was nothing more than quackery?
I'm sorry, sir.
Was it the AMA, the local AMA?
Yeah, right.
Elizabeth, New Jersey.
You see, what happened was, wrote Dianetics, Modern Science, and Mental Health, 1950. The response was so overwhelming. If you have to look at 1950 within that context of time, it was the first do-it-yourself psychotherapy book really to come out, and how to cure yourself of anything all by yourself or with another fellow, your next door neighbor, and just sit down on your couch, open the book up, and have a whack at it. But the overwhelming response to it really was an incredible bestseller. Mail was coming into the Wichita Foundation literally by the mail truckload. I wasn't there, but my father told me quite a bit about it, and other people who were connected with the Research Foundation. This was in the very first one, as I said, was formed in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Now, this is something in the very beginning that got my father very deeply involved in it, simply because there was so darn much money involved. So they formed the foundation was formed. Then doctors and other people there were trying to legitimize it. That is, they wanted to do before and after testing. They wanted to do before and after X-rays, before and after medical exams, and show the differences and the great benefits of it. Well, since the whole book, Dianetics, Modern Science, and Mental Health, was written off the top of my father's head, Dad didn't really appreciate that very much, because people were getting too close into investigating it. Plus, reading that very first book with the dust cover jacket and all of the other claims that were in the very first edition, I haven't read it for umpteen years, and I haven't seen a newest edition, but anyway, they were claiming actual cures. We can cure anything.
Guaranteed cures.
Yes, correct. All you had to do was just run out your birth or run out your prenatal experiences, and that was the basis. That was the basis of all of your problems, was all of these things that people did to you in moments of pain and unconsciousness, called an engram. And if you cleared up this moment of pain and unconsciousness, then that would release all of the terrible charge you may have deep within your subconscious. All right, well, this whole thing in Elizabeth, New Jersey, as I said, they were getting into cures and actual the practice of medicine. What happened then was the New Jersey Medical Association started investigating the foundation and forced its closure because they were practicing medicine without a license. And that forced then Dad to go on to Wichita, Kansas, which we can cover later if you want. But
what is a prenatal experience?
A prenatal experience. Well, any experiences, you could have experiences of sexual relations, experiences of attempted abortions. I can get very graphic if you like, but the TV cameras are here.
I don't think we should get that graphic, sir.
There would be an incredible amount of editing going on. There'd be more bleeps than words.
Okay, sir. Now we're at Wichita. And,
Wichita, Kansas.
And your father married his third wife, Mary Sue Whipp.
Yes.
Who was a student at the Dianetic Center in Wichita.
She, by the way, is only a couple of years older than I am. But I first met her in I believe early 1951. The Dianetic, here's where it really gets kind of interesting. The Wichita Foundation, the Dianetic Research Foundation, Wichita, Kansas, was formed. He, at this time, was still with Sarah Northrop. And since, as I said, there's a recurring theme here throughout his life here of what I've always termed fleeing in the night. That is that he grabbed whatever cash he could from the Elizabeth, New Jersey Foundation and went to Wichita, Kansas, and there with a Don G. Purcell and some other people formed up the Dianetic Research Foundation in Wichita, Kansas. This was in 1951.
1951.
We're up to 1951. We have about another 30 years to go.
Okay, that's when then apparently he went bankrupt.
No, he didn't go bankrupt. Let me give you what happened when going bankrupt. There's quite a number of things occurring at Wichita, Kansas. There again, the attempt at legitimizing Scientology with medical doctors and with other verifications. There too, in Wichita, Sarah and my father got into a tremendous battle, a divorce battle, where Sarah was claiming the same things as an example that he had been doing with my mother many years before that, which is beatings, attempted abortions, etc. And he injecting air into his heart with a hypodermic and also poisoning a bottle of whiskey. Both of them untrue and pure fabrication by my father. But then the reason I bring up this area is because it's pretty, I would imagine, pretty well known. But as far as the, let's see, he went flying off to, taking off to Puerto Rico because the heat of the divorce and the he had claimed mental derangement caused by Sarah, and that's why he was often off to Puerto Rico. I read a letter in one of the files that he had written, and that he was he was going insane, and how they had half near killed him, which was a lot of nonsense. But he, Don G. Purcell, got him back up out of Puerto Rico and propped him up a little bit there, and Don D.G. Purcell wanted to help him out financially, and my father, at this point, 1951, sold to Don G. Purcell all of the rights to Dianetics and Dianetics of Modern Science and Mental Health. That's a fact I haven't really ever seen come out before. So at that juncture, throughout 1951, he no longer owned the rights to Dianetics. This is important because this is one of the reasons on why Scientology was created. Okay. Now, in every legal sense, he did not, just to jump forward very quickly, he did not reacquire the rights to Dianetics and the book Dianetics and the use of them and the processes and everything else until, I believe, 1955. I remember we had one hell of a great celebration around Washington, D.C., where we were at the time, because he had finished destroying Don G. Purcell and getting back all the rights to Dianetics, but to back up to where he had sold all the rights. My father's only had one basic driving goal in any organization, and that is total and complete control. He could never share responsibility, sit on a board of directors, or even operate anyway in a group. And he felt he was being constrained, and he thought he was being confined, and he quite literally, he was in terrible financial straits because he spent money like water, and Don G. Purcell had come around to help him out financially, and also Purcell thought that Dianetics, the processes of Dianetics, the books and what have you, they should belong to the foundation themselves, to the foundation itself. And so he paid quite a bit of money. I don't remember what the sum of the money was, how much the money was, but he then he was there at the Dianetic Research Foundation in Wichita for a while. But he didn't own the rights to it anymore, and he was forced to sit on a board of directors, which he never could stand to do. This is, by the way, in response to your question about bankruptcy. Yes, the foundation went bankrupt, but all of a sudden one day, my father and Mary Sue, they emptied all the bank accounts. Now, he was only able to sign on one small bank account, but I remember my father talking about how he had gotten other people to empty them, and how he had forged the names on checks. But anyway, he had emptied the entire all the bank accounts of the Wichita Dianetic Research Foundation, and did another one of his fleeing in the nights to Phoenix, Arizona. So here he was in Phoenix, Arizona, with the federal bankruptcy court looking down his throat, with the police looking down his throat, with Don G. Purcell looking down his throat, and my father only felt good with incredible amounts of cash with him. And I remember, to jump forward slightly, I remember when I first arrived there in 1952 to start working with him very closely, that he kept shoe boxes of money in his closet, all cash, and they had, I believe, somewhere around 5 or 6 shoe boxes with $25,000 apiece in them in his closet. That, by the way, is something he's always done, which has kept an incredible amount of cash close at hand so he could grab it and run. And that is the reason for the bankruptcy and the failure of the Wichita Dianetic Research Foundation. That answers that question, I think.
How did he destroy Purcell? Don Purcell is the man that eventually gained the rights to Dianetics. You said he destroyed
Don G. Purcell?
Yes.
Well, I don't know all of the particulars, but I do know that he used quite a smear and libel campaign, which is standard procedure. You see, my father only knew how to do one thing, and that was to destroy people. I mean, he could not do anything lightly. To him, anybody who did anything against him, criticized him, he would just flat go after their throat. And I think that he was quite happy. I don't remember exactly, but I think Don G. Purcell got quite ill, but I do know that my father spent a great deal of money from 1952 to 1955 in, I believe, court battles and in the standard disinformation campaign to bury Don.
Okay, back up to 1951. The Dianetics Center offered in Wichita, Kansas, offered a process called auditing.
Yes, correct.
Can you tell us how he conceived the term auditing and the principles behind auditing?
Oh, wow, okay. The auditing and the word clear come from comes from the field of accounting. I have to back up a little bit on definitions of words, if you don't mind.
Well, that's okay. I'm just wondering how he conceived that idea of auditing, and does he have any background, to your knowledge, to scientific background that auditing could be a plausible and worthwhile medical or...
No, of course not.
Or,
no.
Okay. Just something he made up, then, auditing. Auditing is just something he made up, or...
Yes. And as I explained, the basis of Dianetics, Modern Science and Mental Health, the basic book. As I said, we can go into all sorts of...
well, we just want to walk through this gradually with you, and then tomorrow my colleagues and I will really, get into anything that they'd like to get into with you. I know that we want to be easy with you today and of course, the entire time that you're here.
That's okay.
So any time that you, if we're going a little long with you today, we can stop and pick it up again tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I read the AMA, American Medical Association, denounced Hubbard and claimed he was practicing medicine without a license and making outrageous claims by Dianetics would cure all man's ills. And apparently your father was humiliated sometime around there at the Scientology headquarters. Well, actually,
Well, that's several years forward.
yeah, that's in 53.
We can back up and cover that in detail, if you like. I mean,
All right, sir, if you like to... I want to go at your pace. If you want to tell me about 1953, when your father was humiliated for when he was accused of practicing medicine without a license.
Well, 1953, I would like the opportunity, too, I don't wish to monopolize the microphone or anything like that, but...
like you're here to monopolize it, sir.
Huh?
That's why you're here, to monopolize the microphone.
Oh. No, but then as I go along, if we can back up on a sort of a quick chronological order,
Because I have found, in my experience, that it makes things a bit more understandable.
Certainly.
Because of the tremendous fog. You have to view the past of Ella
and Herbert almost like a great big ball of tangled barbed wire. And you look at it, and you can scratch your head and say, what is this? As I said, to refer back to one of my original statements, 99% of what my father wrote about himself is untrue, but there's been so darn many different biographies. He and I used to joke that he would write a bio a week, and he would shift and alter things as he pleased as he went along down the line. That's why I have found it to be advantageous to sort things out. And that's sort of how my head works anyway.
Certainly. Would you like
What
to...
was the question that I hadn't answered?
I guess I was asking about auditing. No, I was also asking about when he was humiliated by the medical AMA, and he felt that he was humiliated at the Church of Scientology headquarters.
Well, humiliated really by the federal court. That'd be December 53 or 52. I'd have to double check here. Anyway, finally the federal court caught up with him about the Wichita Dianetic Research Foundation financial fiasco. And the U.S. Marshals December 53. The U.S. Marshals finally caught up with him when he had returned from London after giving some courses, and he returned to Philadelphia for the what we call the doctorate series of lectures from December 1st to December 19th, 1953.
I believe, yes.
Right? And
yes,
this was in Philadelphia. And right in the middle of the lecture, the U.S. Marshals unsuspectingly just knocked on the door. We were upstairs in a big meeting room. They thought they were just going to serve a normal summons or subpoena to court, but they didn't know that they were dealing with Scientologists. And it got into be one heck of a Donnybrook. It wound up with the FBI, the Philadelphia police, almost all of the U.S. Marshals in town, and a couple of hundred Scientologists, the various areas of law enforcement trying to get up the stairs, and there's 200 of us coming down the stairs, and it's one of those incredible, almost Western-style fights, you see in the barroom. And but in any event, I can go over that in further detail if you like. The subpoena got served. My father had a bodyguard, and of course at that time I weighed about 240 pounds, and I was pretty darn solid. And I had done a great deal of physical activity, so I was no weakling. We kind of dusted off and cooled off everything, and the marshals, I think, were kind of afraid to shoot because we were going to trash them. One of the guys, by the way, is Ernie Kish, and he was connected in Philadelphia with organized crime. Any one of these things, by the way, I'm very happy to go into any kind of detail on, but I don't want to,
Well, we just want to keep in sequence. He left from Phoenix and went to Camden, and then apparently things got hot for him in Phoenix. He then went to Camden, and then we have the brawl that you mentioned in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, we, as I said, make little notations here and expand it further. But that is basically one of the reasons, being caught in court, and I remember his incredible rage afterwards, which he had an incredible temper, that he would never be in another court again. And because of the problems he was been having with the AMA in Elizabeth, New Jersey, the problems he had also with the AMA in Wichita, Kansas, because they were also on his back because they were still practicing medicine without a license. And this is one of the major reasons that he later that month formed the basis of the three basic Scientology corporations in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay, so then to get the medical authorities off his back,
right,
he then formed
and by this time
religion
right.
that's judged based on faith, I suppose, and that's when Scientology was created. Is that correct? Around?
No, actually, it was 1952, but this is when it became an incorporated religion.
Legal corporation was in 1953. And
yeah, Camden, New Jersey. I was one of the signatories in all three corporations as far as the incorporators are concerned.
All right. When he was first incorporated, was he?
When he was first what, sir?
When he first became incorporated as a religion, I guess I shouldn't get involved with taxes. That's not the issue. Is that true? That's another case. What was the motivation of becoming a religion?
Well, as I said, he had been having quite a bit of harassment with the court, with the medical professions, quite a bit of problems with money, taxes, IRS, and he later, it was a secondary or a second idea to saying, well, we're dealing with the fate and the human spirit, so therefore we're perfectly legal to be dealing in that. But it to him was the only solution he had to all of the problems he'd been experiencing up to then. And that's why I think it was December 18th, 1953, if I'm correct. That's when the three corporations were formed: the Church of Scientology, the Church of Human Engineering, and the Church of American Science in Camden.
Then it's safe to assume that he became a religion because he could keep more of the money.
Correct. Well, one thing about that form of corporation is that it's pretty easy to move money and what have you about in that type of corporation.
Was your father a deeply religious man as a young man, or did he have any deep religious experiences that moved him to start his own religion?
No.
All right, there's some things
I think
that
there was three questions there, and I meant three no's.
Yes, sir, I understand. You've got something about Mr. Hubbard's, your father's biography, and I won't go over them very much, but I'd like to ask you a question. You can answer me yes or no. Was his father your father a nuclear physicist?
No. As I said, he took one semester at George Washington University, which he failed in nuclear physics.
All right. Number two, did he have a Bachelor of Science and a PhD degree?
Not from an accredited college or university. They were self-conferred either through Scientology organizations or through Sequoia University, which was a diploma mill in Los Angeles, which in those days you could send in $5 and get a Doctor of Science degree or whatever. There was an association between the two, between my father and a Sequoia. They got together an agreement where we could trade certificates.
You recognize each other's degree then?
No, I mean trade them, give them out.
Then the Church of Scientology...
We could give out, this fell apart because there again, this arrangement fell apart because there again, my father could not work with anyone. I mean, he wanted not as an equal or any kind of a business arrangement like that. But where we were going to set it up in order to try to legitimize the organizations by giving out Sequoia University degrees. I mean, Sequoia, if somebody took one of our courses in Scientology, then Sequoia could give them a degree, because Sequoia had been formed many years before that as under one of those sort of neat little loopholes in the educational laws of the state of California, which made them sort of quasi-valid, even though all the guy did was buy it.
Does Sequoia exist?
Does it now exist?
Yes.
No, it did then.
Did it ever teach classes?
No.
Or never held classes?
No, it was just as I said, you could send in $5 and get a degree.
Okay. He also claimed he graduated from George Washington and Princeton. Is that true?
No, he did attend Princeton.
But he never graduated?
But that was with the U.S. Navy, when he was in the U.S. Navy, and he took a military government course, which after that gave him, he felt, all the technology he needed in order to govern or to produce the organization board or to map out the organization itself. But he was, in the later part of 1945, I believe, he was assigned there by the U.S. Navy for, I think 3 months, I'm not sure. That was because they were about to send him to Japan to be a part of the occupational military government of Japan at the end of 1945. But he engineered himself out of that. But the only time he spent at Princeton was a military, what's it called, a military occupational government course.
All right, Ted. Did he travel extensively through Asia?
No.
Did he live on a large cattle ranch and had a brother of Indian tribe? Was he related to an Indian or
no? My
Indian tribe?
I don't know about the Indian tribe.
All right.
He might have known it because there was number of Indians around there, but as far as owning any land in Montana, no. My grandfather, his father, and mother, they didn't own any land in Montana, but I think in several of the biographies, they mentioned that his grandfather owned a great cattle ranch. At one time, he had written that it was a quarter of the size of Montana. That's an awful lot of land. Anyway, his grandfather, I believe Waterbury, or the other grandfather, but they didn't own any land whatsoever, except maybe a small house.
Was he a friend of presidents and their families?
No. He never met any. He never met any of the children of presidents. What he was referring to is Calvin Coolidge. What that stems from, you see, what my father has done is he takes one tiny small fact and then he balloons it way up. What happened was that he had become an Eagle Scout in 1 year. That's one accomplishment he did do, which was become an Eagle Scout in 1 year from the age of 11 to 12. He did it from birthday to birthday. They were in Washington, D.C. I remember reading his small Boy Scout diary. I still remember this day, he opened it up, and on the one page it says, "I am going down today to see the president on the trolley." He's 12 years old. All right, and the next page is that shook hands with president. It felt like a dead fish. And that was his extent or contact with the presidency or the families of presidents.
That was his contact.
That's because he was
the
Eagle
great
Scout.
and the near great. All right. Shook hands with
President Coolidge at
President
12 years
Coolidge
old.
At 12 years old,
And it felt like a dead fish.
Okay.
Right.
Did he ever perform Did he ever study minerals in the United States and Puerto Rican governments?
In Puerto Rico? No.
Yes.
No. Somewhere in the 20s, there was a great big hurricane in Puerto Rico. Would have to really do a bit of research to pin the date down, but there was a big hurricane, and my father was a terrible student. My grandfather told me many times of all the times he had to go down and please talk the teachers into letting him stay in the school, because he also was not a very good student at all. So my grandfather got the idea, well, they had the big hurricane, they were calling for volunteers, because evidently it had pretty well devastated the island. And so my grandfather sent my father down there to help out. There were, I think several of his other school friends went along with him, and all they did was lark around like a big old vacation. Now, if that's a mineralogical survey, unless it was throwing rocks or something. But
okay.
No, there was no mineralogical survey made.
He also claimed he did a lot of underwater research for the University of Michigan. Do you know about that?
No, he did not do that.
I must ask you these questions because these are the questions that the faith is built on, that your father can do all these things.
Yes.
And that's why he has so much credibility with Mr. Walters and other high-ranking members of the Church of Scientology. So therefore, we must ask you these things for the record. How are you feeling, sir? Would you like
Fine.
to continue?
Doing good.
Okay.
Far away.
All right. I'm just trying to, again, walk you through this. Apparently, tell me about when Hubbard has an individual persuade a reluctant person who runs a Scientology organization to turn over all proceeds to Hubbard. Do you know anything about that?
Oh, we did that several times. That was standard operating procedure, SOP.
You mean they build up the organization and you take their money?
Right.
Things like franchises,
take over the organization, not just the money. I mean, in the very beginning, you must realize that it was a growing thing, and there wasn't too many too many organizations, and building organizations in the early days was pretty difficult, and people had a great deal of faith and belief in Scientology, and they worked very hard for it. And when they got an organization going really good, we would take it over. And I can give you several examples of that came to mind. There are probably more of them. Let me catch a few of them here for the fun of it.
Are they like franchises?
Yeah, they started out as independent organization, but from the very beginning, since Scientology, that is, since the summer of 1952, everybody was required to pay 10%. If you audited professionally, if you were a professional Scientologist, you paid 10%. And this also included anything that was construed to be an organization, whether it be a corporation or just a group or a center. In those days, we generally called them centers. But insofar as the major corporation takeovers were concerned, there was the one in 1953 in Philadelphia, where he had given a Congress that December of 53, and there was John Neugebauer and Helen O'Brien. And they were somewhat reluctant to pay my father the money for the big Congress they had, and he had a course. It was called the Philadelphia Doctorate Course. And so this Ernie Kish, who was a great gargantuan man, well above 6 feet, probably weighed 250 pounds, and he had half his front forearm and his right hand sawed off, which he himself had sawed off to stay out of World War II. Sawed it off in a bandsaw.
And what's the relationship?
Because he was a loan shark.
This is Mr. Kish?
Yes, Mr. Kish. And okay, well, Mr. Kish and I, we went over to John's place, and to John Neugebauer and Helen O'Brien's Philadelphia Center, and we collected the money. In fact, we collected all their money, and collected the tapes and collected all of their books, and they quite willingly signed over their bank accounts and what have you, because, to put it pleasantly, we used physical force to do so. That was the the second major takeover of an organization, and then, as I said, we established our center in Camden, New Jersey, which is right across the river from Philadelphia, because we had set up the three nonprofit corporations in New Jersey in December of '53. The very first time we canceled out on a organization was Ross Lamoureux's a man by the name of Ross Lamoureux had a organization in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a Dianetic type of center foundation in Phoenix. Well, when Dad left Wichita, Kansas in early 1952 and went to Phoenix, he didn't have any organization. All he had was his shoe boxes full of money. And we later, as time went on, took that organization from Ross to operate, because Ross was doing very well and had quite a number of people hanging about, and this is where
This was the first experience I had, just when I was 18 years old, first experience I had where we really leaned on and blackmailed the guy. It seemed, if I remember, he loved to have sex with little boys. And in those days, of course, that type of activity was very punishable by the police. I imagine it is now today, but today people can discuss that kind of thing, and it's okay to know that you're a homosexual or something like that. But in 1952, the people were pretty well straight-laced, and that was devastating information. And so Ross Lamoureux rather thoroughly cooperated with us in what we wanted to do.
So we can get into a lot of these things tomorrow. I want a few more questions, and then we'll leave the bulk of it for tomorrow. You say these missions are like franchises.
That's right.
Is Clearwater a franchise? And Miami? I know Miami is smaller.
No, I've had no dealings with it, but from looking at it from the periphery, it would have to be one of the main centers. The three main centers would be Los Angeles, California, Clearwater, Florida, and East Grinstead, Sussex, England, St. Hill Manor, just outside of London.
Could someone, say, go to Tampa and start a mission and pay 10% as a franchise fee or as a rent or as a...
Could someone do that?
Yes.
Yes, certainly. As I said, it's always been that way from 1952 forward, that people were expected and required to pay their 10%. If they didn't, we'd do such things as revoke their certificates or force them to come in for more training, or tell everybody that they couldn't go to a particular center now because they didn't have the latest tech meaning technology, the latest, quote, science, unquote, of Scientology.
Sir, I think we'd like to just adjourn now until tomorrow morning. We have so much more to go, and a lot of the meat of the issue is in here, and I would hate to get you in the middle of it, and then we must adjourn.
And also, I would like to back up chronologically.
Yes, sir. And is there anything you want to say before we adjourn the meeting?
No, I certainly appreciate you inviting me here.
Thank you for attending, and thank you for being such a cooperative person. And again, we admire your courage, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. And we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Meeting is adjourned. Yeah. Oh, it's losing.